Hello and welcome everyone to the Q&A session for our upcoming video course, Ayurvedic Herbalism for Women, the 7-week exploration into anti-aging herbs and Ayurvedic remedies to clear brain fog, sleep deeply, and reduce stress. I'm Ann Patricio, and I'm honored to be here to host this Q&A conversation for the Shift Network, where we'll explore the teachings of KP Khalsa and address questions about his latest 7-week course, Ayurvedic Herbalism for Women, which begins Wednesday, October 17th at noon Pacific. Now, you can fully participate in this course even if you can't attend the live calls, and I'll share more about that later, but first, I want to introduce our guest. KP Khalsa has 47 years of experience in holistic medicine and is one of the foremost natural healing experts in North America, nationally credentialed to teach herbalism, yoga, and Ayurvedic massage. One of the first nationally certified instructors of Kundalini Yoga in the United States, KP holds a doctorate in Ayurveda, has authored or edited many books, and is known for bringing Ayurveda to life in an understandable and a practical way. And I'm so grateful that he's here with us today, and welcome to you, KP.
Hi, Ann. So nice to be with you.
Yes, great to have you here too. So we're going to spend our time together exploring your questions for KP as we prepare for his upcoming video course, Ayurvedic Herbalism for Women, which begins Wednesday, October 17th. If you want to check out the website and learn more about this 7-week course and find a link to register, please visit ayurvedaforwomen.net. That's AYURVEDA women.net to see a full description. And don't worry, I will repeat that again for you. Now, let's get started with your questions. If you have a question for KP, please type it in and I'll be happy to read it for you. KP will be happy to address your questions about this upcoming course and also your general health-related questions. We're going to begin with this question from the webcast from Stephanie. There are a lot of online tests to determine your Ayurvedic constitution. Is that a reliable way to figure it out, or is receiving a pulse reading going to give you more details?
It's good to do both, actually. And let me talk a little bit about the Constitution before we talk about how to determine that. So the Constitution is your blueprint, or the basic you that you're born with. It comes from the genetic inheritance from your parents, a little bit more from your mother than your father, and then things that happen to you during gestation. So it's already established by the time you're born. You can't change it. You can only modify it. So there's no best constitution to be. They all have advantages and disadvantages. The idea of putting ourselves in a category, a constitutional box or way of understanding how we function, our baseline blueprint, is really compelling for people. But the bottom line is that people have now lived another 20, 50, 80 years past their birth, and a lot of things have happened. So the Constitution is not really very important in terms of determining what we need to do for our health today. Over the course of a lifetime, it's probably the most important thing you could understand, and it made huge changes in me when I figured it out and began to live in that way. But it's to help you plan the future, not to treat acute disease today or even to deal with your issues today. Most people have departed energetically somewhat from their constitution. Generally speaking, we do tend to get diseases that are associated with the energetics of our body. You might have a cold, wet constitution like me or any other combination. But just to emphasize that we often find people fascinated by this idea of constitution, and they end up treating the wrong thing because they're treating the person they were 40 years ago, not the person they are today. That said, I think an assessment from a practitioner is a great idea, but honestly, those questionnaires are pretty good because your constitution can be determined by every aspect of your being, but it's the things that you resort to under stress or the way you are the most consistently at your baseline. If you ask your friends, am I angry and judgmental, stoic and resistant, or flighty and disorganized, your friends will say, "Are you kidding?" Anybody would know that, but it's hard for us to check in with ourselves and figure it out. So good thing to know for the baseline of understanding your entire life. The thing is, I can't tell when I look at you about your dreams, your food preferences, your sexual life, the way you think, those kinds of things. Generally speaking, your constitution is pretty consistent physically and mentally. So if you have a hot body, you probably have a hot mind, but anything is possible. So those constitutional questionnaires online bring out all those aspects of how do you think, what are your preferences, what are your dreams like in sleep, and what are your dreams for your life. Those are very valuable things to know. Bone structure, skin tone, that kind of thing you can figure out. It's also a good idea to take several of those online questionnaires because they vary somewhat and they're going to be worded a little bit differently, and you may resonate with the wording of one more than another. So that's a good way to get started with your constitution. If there are any online questionnaires you can find that relate to your current energy balance, what's going on right now, those are even better and more relevant. So I would look those up.
Thank you so much, KP, for that. Ash is asking how to decide whether to use Jatamansi or Bacopa in mental psychological problems. What are the specific indications for each?
Well, they're fairly different. Really, the only thing that causes those two herbs, Jatamansi and Bacopa, to be in the same category is that they both work on the mind and the nervous system. But Jatamansi is light, a little bit cooling, but it's sedating. So Jatamansi has more long-term healing benefit for the nervous system, but it will also put you to sleep. It's not a slam dunk for sleep. It's a mild sleep-inducing remedy, but for some people, it's the perfect match. Bacopa is a little bitter, cool remedy that's much colder than Jatamansi. It's much more aggressive. It only works pretty much on the nervous system, and it increases intellect like that, and works a little faster than the Jatamansi.
Thank you so much. We have one here from Dolly who's asking, what herb would you recommend, or herbs you recommend, for thyroid disease instead of Eltroxin?
Yeah, so the drug she's referring to there is thyroid hormone that you take to supplement. So let me just say, when we talk about all these various kinds of conditions, there is no one best herb for any given condition. So I can only mention one or two herbs when we talk about these things. So rather than talking about the best herb, let me just mention a good herb. So there's an herb in Ayurveda, ashwagandha. We talked about it in the previous iteration of this class, and we did that in the recent past. Ashwagandha was named the herb of the year in the health food industry this year, and a very good herb for treating low thyroid, which is what thyroid hormone is used for. And that helps to actually heal the gland, as opposed to just substitute for the gland what the gland isn't doing. Rarely will there be one herb that's just the magic treatment for any given person, for any given condition. We are going to get into some energizing herbs and things that do affect the thyroid to a certain extent in the upcoming class. Bala is an herb that we'll talk about. Bala means strength, actually, and that's what it does in the body, is enhance stamina, energy, robust tissues, proper metabolism. It's very close to ashwagandha in the way that it works. So that would be another one that we could add to the list. They both act very slowly, and thyroid is a condition. First, let me just say that it's impossible to target one particular endocrine gland. And Ayurveda doesn't even, traditionally at least, talk about the endocrine system. It wasn't known, it wasn't understood. They did dissection 3,000 years ago, and they knew that these glands existed, but they didn't really understand the hormones and these messenger molecules. But they knew from experience that people with certain symptoms responded to certain drugs or herbal medicines. So the way we understand that today, in terms of thyroid deficiency, the endocrine system is like a symphony, and they all have feedback with each other, and it's a completely functioning unit. So there's no way to target thyroid only without also addressing all the other endocrine glands, the sex hormone glands like testes and ovaries, the adrenals, the pituitary. So we use long-acting, slow, stamina-enhancing remedies. Those are called rejuvenatives, or rasayana is the Ayurvedic term. to help rejuvenate the endocrine system over time. It works very, very well, but it takes a while. So if someone's already taking thyroxine, the thyroid hormone, they can continue taking that temporarily to help them feel better while we work on the more underlying work from the root issue and use herbs like ashwagandha and bala over, let's say, a year. I usually tell people a year to expect to normalize their thyroid, and that's if they're diligent and consistent, which, of course, as we know, is sometimes an issue.
Thank you, KP. Diane is asking a question that we have other viewers that are interested in this answer too. She's asking, if I start taking herbs daily for general health, can I stop taking daily vitamins?
The quick answer is no. Vitamins provide building blocks to make essential compounds in your body. Your body has thousands, and I mean thousands, multiple thousands of enzymes that it makes to facilitate chemical reactions. And most vitamins are used in that way by the body, a very specific metabolic purpose. Magnesium, not a vitamin, but we know that magnesium now is involved in over 800, and the list keeps growing, of metabolic reactions for things that your body needs it for. Herbal medicine is not designed to provide those building blocks. You're just taking a few grams a day compared to the, pounds of food that you eat every day. So there's not significant amount of vitamins in these things. Herbal medicines provide regulatory substances that help your body know what to do, decide what to do, and to re-regulate its metabolism. But for basic building blocks, you need food, which does, of course, contain vitamins. And then if you want to use vitamins in addition as nutritional insurance, or what we would call nutrient pharmacology, by all means do so, and I totally support that.
Thanks, and thanks for that question, Diane. We have a question here asking, will we learn how to understand our own system type and what herbs would best support us? I have no medical experience, and this is all new to me.
No medical experience needed whatsoever. It's all about learning about yourself. And yes, that's the whole point of this course, is to start from wherever you are. And we'll have students of wide variety of experience, I'm quite sure, but many students that it would be new to. And that's the whole point of this, is learning about how to use it. All over the world, and including in Ayurveda traditionally in India, grandmas treat about 90% of all the health problems that people have. And in traditional cultures, maybe your grandmother did it. In our culture, we pretty much lost that. My grandmother didn't know anything about, treating anything, but grandmas everywhere in the world may know a dozen herbs, but they know 10 ways to use each herb, and they can treat every kind of boo-boo that there is. You only go to the professional when you have some real serious issue that grandma can't handle, and that's a minority of the time. So you will learn about these things. They're all safe. They're more or less mix and match, the ones we're going to talk about. We're going to include a module that's sort of a pre-course module this time on Introduction to Ayurveda and how to understand Ayurvedic vocabulary a little bit. Again, we're not going to get into a lot of Sanskrit in this class, but to show you how to figure out what's going on with you, we provide voluminous handouts so that you can understand what's happening in your body and make sense out of what we're going to discuss in class. I think everybody is going to find it real understandable, and my hope is that it will be instantly applicable. The day you take the class, you'll be able to go out and use these things. We'll talk about not only the 21 herbs in the class, but each module includes something having to do with daily fundamentals, some dietary issues, some lifestyle issues, so we can weave those all together, and you'll be able to go out and apply these things for your own benefit.
Thanks. CJ is asking, what sources do you use and recommend for the freshest and most potent herbal ingredients?
This is a tricky question because Ayurveda is very much in an evolution in the United States. I started learning Ayurveda with my teacher almost 50 years ago, and we had nothing, and I mean nothing. We had less than nothing. There were no books, there were no herbs, there was no source. Transportation back and forth to India was iffy, and I had to learn all this academically, and occasionally we'd see an herb, and sometimes I'd have to learn some Chinese herb that was a substitute for the Ayurvedic herb. Things are very different now with the internet. So there are many, many sources. Some excellent quality sources have now opened up in the United States, and some professional quality products in India, companies, have opened up distribution warehouses in the United States. Just in the last year, there have been about half a dozen that have opened up. So we have great access to a substantial amount more of them. Let me recommend one source. It is in India, but they have excellent customer service. And that resource is Ayurveda Bay, like eBay, but Ayurveda Bay, ayurvedabay.com. And the owner of that website is a computer guy who said that he was tired of people having difficulty getting Ayurvedic herbs. So he put together an excellent website, very well organized, very functional, and he only sells the highest quality brands of things. He's very personable, and if you just click on customer service and send him an email, he knows me, and you can say that we talked on the internet, and you want to buy some of these things that we're going to talk about from him. The nice thing about buying from India is that the exchange rate with the dollar is very favorable. So things from India are very reasonably priced, and he has priced them to not gouge you. So you're getting a very, very good price. Shipping is minimal. It gets to you in 2-3 days. Really a great service. Now, we could go into 15 or 20 other excellent sources in the United States. We'll post handouts for all these in the class, but I think for a one-size-fits-all kind of thing, Ayurveda Bay would be a good source.
Thank you so much, KP. Patty is asking, are there any Ayurvedic herbs which can reduce or eliminate cracking of the joints, meaning the sound that your knees make when you get up from a sitting position?
Boy, that's for sure. And for those of you that know a little bit of Ayurvedic terminology, that's caused by Vata dosha, one of the 3 primal metabolic forces. And Vata dosha is basically the nervous system, but it carries with it a cold, dry energy, and it causes a lack of lubrication, slipperiness in the joints, and that can be treated very effectively. In one of our modules, module 3, we're going to go into the #1 main anti-Vata remedy in all of Ayurveda, which is a combination of 10 roots that can be used as tea. It's actually kind of tasty, which is quite unusual for Ayurvedic herbs. So you can use it as a condiment in your food. It's made into massage oil. It's used up your nose as a mouthwash. So many things, every way you could imagine, it's used. And that gets to the root of this problem. That combination is called Dashmula. Dash is 10, Mula is root. The 10 root combinations, you could easily look it up online and read about it. Going back to sourcing, I'm a little concerned about the whole Amazon situation with Ayurvedic herbs now, because many people think that the first place to go for anything on the internet is Amazon, and granted, that's probably true. But when I look at the Ayurvedic herbs offered on Amazon, it's often pretty much impossible to tell where they came from, what brand they are. Ayurveda has a lot more, lot broader spectrum of quality than the United States health food market. So there's everything from the best of the best to the worst of the worst. And the low price, low quality companies don't put on their label, this is inferior medicine for a low price. So you just don't know. So I would hesitate to go there unless you have some experience with the brands. The other sneaking thing that they're now doing is that Indian companies are putting their products for sale on Amazon, but not telling you that they're based in India. So you're paying in US dollars, you're clicking on it, and you expect to get it in 2, 3, 4 days. And then 3 weeks later, it still hasn't arrived. And then a very Indian-looking package with Indian labeling, comes to your door. And, oh, it was that order that you made, 4 weeks ago that they didn't tell you they're from India. So somehow try to figure out if they're stocking it in the United States. That's a whole new issue. And if you want something, you want it today, not a month from now. Anyway, word to the wise.
Good point. Thank you so much, KP. Kerry is asking for his 88-year-old mom's benefit, and I'm sure all of our other listeners too. Are there any recommendations for macular degeneration, specifically in this case, the wet form Kerry's asking about? Anything specifically to support the eyes and the eye health?
Yeah, we can definitely treat it. It would be hard for me to come up with sort of a 1, 2, 3 list of herbs for macular degeneration. We treat it a lot with generally good success. The longer a person has had it, the more it's an issue. But generally, it's at least stoppable and mostly reversible. Most of the research on macular degeneration has been on nutritional supplements, modern type supplements, as opposed to Ayurvedic remedies. But let me recommend one, and that's the herb amla. Amla is a little golf ball-sized fruit. That's the most commonly used herb in all of Ayurveda. It's a rejuvenating tonic, just treats so many different things, anti-aging, profound antioxidant remedy, but it happens to be particularly good for the eyes. The disadvantage is that it works very slowly. So macular degeneration is going to be, it's like turning the Titanic. Again, the best way to treat all these things is from the root. So macular degeneration didn't just fall out of the sky on someone. It was the result of a long process of step-by-step failures. So it's challenging to go back and treat the root in someone who's aged like that, but ultimately that's the best way to do it. So you can sort of start from both ends and begin to work with rejuvenative things like amla that are going to be a little slow, and then work on some other things that tend to be a little faster. Macular degeneration, or age-related macular degeneration, AMD, is the leading cause of blindness in people over 65 in the United States. Very treatable. These days, we would probably go a little bit out of the bounds of traditional Ayurveda to treat it, but let me just encourage you that it is treatable if you want to dive into it.
That's helpful. Thanks, KP. Anita is sharing that she drinks curcumin, ginger, lemon, and many supplements. She has kidney disease and is afraid of dialysis, and is wondering, are there some herbs that Ayurveda would recommend to support kidney disease?
Yeah, this is a very challenging area because people on dialysis are advised to not consume a whole load of things. And it's basically, when you're a kidney specialist and you're working with patients with dialysis, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. So they know things that cause problems, and they don't want problems with the dialysis because it's life supporting. And so they would rather be extra cautious. And these lists include long lists of foods and things to recommend. So many dialysis specialists just say no herbal remedies of any kind. Well, herbs are just plants, and people, of course, are going to eat plants. You have to stay alive. And so the question is, when is it a food and when is it a medicine? It's interesting. In the discussion we just had about macular degeneration, same kind of situation here. Ayurveda is a constantly evolving system, and in all the ancient texts from 3,000 years ago, the writers say we're leaving the last page blank for following generations to note their experiences. So we're experimenting with Ayurveda and using it in a modern way with modern people and mixing it with other things that we now have available. And so we rub up against conventional medicine all the time with these kinds of issues. I can't contradict the nephrologist about the dialysis, so I'm not going to say that there are herbs that are good, but you could ask the nephrologist if something is acceptable. All that said, as a preamble, I'll mention one herb, and that's the herb Gokshara, Gokshura, Gokshara. Gokshara is the #1 go-to remedy for the kidneys in Ayurveda. It's just a kidney panacea, treats so many things about the urinary tract, and generally speaking, it's likely to be beneficial. Now, I know nothing about this case. I don't know why the person is on dialysis, but if the nephrologist allows it, that's an herb that's often used, broadly speaking, for kidney disease in Ayurveda. It's safe and effective. So in the class, we're going to talk about things that are suitable for lay people to use, and then there are a couple other levels up for things that have to be used much more discreetly. And when you get into serious things like dialysis, you need to consult a professional really to get into that level of advice.
Tracy is asking about Ayurvedic's way of treating psoriasis.
Yeah, a great example of a disease that starts from the root. So again, psoriasis didn't just fall on a person out of the sky. It's a combination of what we would call toxicity, or the buildup of undesirable substances in the body that irritates the skin. And that's a combination of the body not detoxifying itself through its eliminative organs, usually some kind of problem with the liver stagnation, and that waste material builds up and gradually starts to irritate the skin, and the skin then inflames. So we have to use anti-inflammatories, detoxifying remedies, and liver kinds of remedies. So in our next class, we're going to have a unit on detoxification and talk about 3 herbs specifically that are beneficial. Women have a little bit more difficulty with detoxification in general than men, which is why we want to focus on that. Women have far more psoriasis than men. Psoriasis is an inflammatory autoimmune disease, and across the board, women have up to 10 times more autoimmune disease than men for reasons that's not really too clear yet, but we know that we can treat those effectively. Let me recommend one herb that's not from our upcoming class, but is a great herb in general for psoriasis. That's the herb neem, N-E-E-M. Neem oil can be applied topically for psoriasis. It has a really funky smell, so just be aware of that, but it works well. So you can get neem oil from Ayurvedic suppliers and apply it topically. There's another product called 777 oil. That's an Ayurvedic combination made specifically for psoriasis. That's likely to work well. So you could try both and just see which works effectively. But really, psoriasis is a disease that arises from within. So we have to work on the immune system so the body is not attacking itself. We have to work on the inflammatory mechanism and deal with inflammation, which we will talk about in the course. We have a whole module on inflammation and the detox that's involved. So you're looking at probably a good solid year to reverse psoriasis, but that's pretty reasonable if you're making progress. And we treat it all day long very, very effectively. It takes some serious dedication, but we usually can do it. Anyway, you could try those few things, see what happens. And one of the herbs that we will talk about in this upcoming class for inflammation is dandelion. And the leaf is actually a little bit more anti-inflammatory, but it's a little bit diuretic. So we probably want to use dandelion root in this case. And the dandelion root is detoxifying and anti-inflammatory, widely used for skin diseases across the board. So good luck with your psoriasis.
Thanks for that, KP. So we get all these questions as we're hearing psoriasis and other challenges, that health-related challenges that people are facing. And where do we begin to unpack and really address those health issues individually so that we don't reach those situations? Is it immune support, and how will Ayurveda in this course particularly help us with that, or all over health support?
Yeah, Ayurveda does treat symptoms, but its real forte is preventing a problem. So ideally, your grandparents were supposed to be healthy and to produce healthy parents who kept themselves healthy all their life, and that you were born healthy. So your body was made healthy in the womb of your mother from the genetic material from both parents, and then they taught you how to stay healthy, and you stayed healthy your entire life. So there are some mistakes that people make, and we all had our issues. So we want to get back on track. So we'll talk about how to be able to do that. And really, that's the underlying core foundation of Ayurveda, is how to put these things back in alignment in the long run. So I was talking, for example, about that herb that treats Vata dosha, dashmula. So that's the cold, dry metabolic tendency in the body, and it causes all kinds of instability in the body, including pain, anxiety, insomnia, fuzzy thinking, memory loss, so many things. And so dashmula doesn't treat any of those things. It treats the underlying root of those problems. So each of these herbs that we're going to talk about can be used for root cause issues, and then we'll talk about some diet and lifestyle sorts of issues, and to treat symptoms. Nothing wrong with treating symptoms, but while you're treating the bud at the end of the branch, the problem down in the root of the tree is still continuing, and you're just going to sprout another branch somewhere else. So we'll talk about both. Ayurveda is very focused on prevention, and you have to sort of do everything right. You have a little bit of wiggle room. But generally speaking, you have to figure out what's going on energetically in your body, and we'll talk about how to do that, and then set about living in a way that slowly readjusts all these issues so that you don't end up with macular degeneration or psoriasis. Once those have become symptomatic, it's going to take a while to reverse those kinds of things, whether it's arthritis or memory loss or fatigue or whatever it is. But in the long run, you can live to be an aged elder with great energy, mental functioning, stamina, sexual stamina, and a healthy immune system.
Well, if you're just joining us, we are here with KP Khalsa learning about his latest course, Ayurvedic Herbalism for Women, which begins Wednesday, October 17th at 12 noon Pacific. I invite you to please log on and check out the sales page at ayurvedaforwomen.net. That's AYURVEDAFOR women.net. You'll find the details and a link to register. Emily has this question. She'd like to grow her own herbal garden for healing purposes. How can she find out what herbs are actually organic product herbs for medicinal healing online? She's asking for, how can I find out what herbs are actually organic product herbs for medicine healings online?
I think if you just searched the words Ayurveda and organic, and maybe seeds or plants or nursery or something like that, you'd come up with the main suppliers. There are a handful of suppliers. I will send you to one, and I'm trying to remember. They changed their name recently, but their name was Horizon Seeds, and they're in Williams, Oregon, like Prince William, Williams, Oregon. And you probably can find them just using Williams, Oregon and the search terms that you're looking for there. This whole issue of growing your own herbs brings up an interesting point. It's something that many people want to do. I totally support it. It's a great idea. The problem is that you have to match the growing conditions to the native environment that herb grew up in. So we were talking about ashwagandha, for example. That's an herb that grows in the brutal heat. It's closely related to tomatoes, and you know how tomatoes love heat. So ashwagandha grows in a very hot environment, usually without a whole lot of water, kind of semi-arid, almost desert-type region. So if you bring it into a cooler, shorter growing season with more water, it's going to produce a bigger, fatter, juicier root. But whether or not that root has the medicinal qualities that we want, we just don't know. So it's very different than growing food. You grow spinach in your garden. In the first place, it's a temperate plant. It's been designed to grow in a temperate environment. Ashwagandha, a different story. So your carrots in your garden, you just want them to taste decent and have some nutrients. But if you go to Safeway, there's no nutrient information. How much carotenes are in a carrot? We don't know. They were grown someplace, and we assume they're, more or less average. But most of these herbs, at least in Ayurveda, are wildcrafted, and they come from a very specific environment of humidity, temperature, latitude, elevation, growing zone. And very often, they require maybe some microbes in the soil to be able to coexist with them and make them produce active ingredients. It's very complicated. So to take a medicinal herb from the wild and domesticate it is a generations-long project. That's been done for a few things. I mentioned amla, for example. Ashwagandha is cultivated in Ayurveda. So there are a few of those, but still in India today, almost all herbs are wildcrafted. They do best in their native environment, and we know very well how they work. So I would say give it a try. The problem is you sort of don't know how the typical ones work, the wildcrafted ones. So I would suggest trying them from some good quality source, getting a sense of how they work, then experiment with growing that particular herb, and then use that. And if it works, you hit a home run. Usually they don't, sorry to say. So you can grow a great, big, beautiful plant, and it can be void of active ingredients because it's at the wrong elevation, or it wasn't fertilized in the proper way, or all those things. It's pretty complicated. Anyway, that's my take on that.
Thank you. We have several questions around this. Andrea and others are asking, is there a good herb or recommended herbs you would recommend for hot flashes?
Yeah, Ayurveda has a tremendous herb for hot flashes. The herb is shatavari, Shatavari, shatavari. Shatavari is a relative of asparagus, the kind of asparagus that we eat. It's a type of asparagus, and the root is what we use in this case. Fantastic for hot flashes. Now, that herb is not included in our upcoming course, but it's easily available. Most people get benefit from about 15 grams. So I was just talking to a client this morning. who had hot flashes and worked her way up to 15 grams of shatavari and shut off like a switch. So you probably should start with more like 2 or 3 grams and over maybe a week work your way up. But I asked her how it tasted. She says perfectly fine. She just stirs it in water and drinks it down. That's just fine. So it's easily available. You get it in powder form, pretty neutral tasting. You could stir it into some mushy food like applesauce. You could stir it into water and drink it down. But right around 15 grams is the sweet spot for most women. It might take a couple days to kind of kick in, but many women, if they were to take 15 grams of shatavari today, no hot flashes tomorrow. Now you have to keep taking it to sustain that. And the shatavari is actually curative over time. So it actually, the longer you take it, the less likely you are to continue having the hot flashes. So that's a great choice. I'm just thinking through if there's anything. There's an herb that's in our upcoming class that we're going to talk about, the herb musta. It's nutgrass in English, M-U-S-T-A, musta, that's used for hot flashes to a certain extent. Let's call it a junior shatavari. It's not quite as spectacular as the shatavari, but again, the dose might be 10 grams. And same situation, you could take it in powder form. And that herb is a real multi-faceted herb. In the most famous text in Ayurveda, the author called it the best herb for digestion in the entire Ayurvedic world, musta, for absorption specifically, to absorb nutrients from your gut. So we've got that. It helps to treat anxiety, stress, and depression. And it's an herb for general female hormone benefit, including hot flashes. So both of those are worth a try, shatavari and musta.
Thank you. And this might be redundant, KP, but Kaushika is asking about menopause and general support. This person is using ashwagandha, has also used in taking cow's head pills, and wants to know what other herbs you might recommend for menopause support. And it sounds like you'll be going into this a bit in the course too.
Yeah, both shatavari and musta work by long-term stabilizing of female hormone balance, and so they both treat all the varieties of all the issues of menopause. It just so happens that they happen to work pretty quickly for hot flashes. So in the long run, all these things that treat hot flashes, we have to be just a little careful with ashwagandha because it's very slightly warming. It's usually not much of an issue, but just be aware of that. We normally don't give women who are having hot flashes ashwagandha. It's not typically used for menopause. It's not a crisis if you use it, but it may not be the best choice. When you said cow's head pills, I think you were referring to gokshara. Gokshara that I was talking about for the kidneys earlier is beneficial for pelvic, kinds of issues, and so it tends to promote vaginal moisture and support of vaginal tissues in general, and urinary incontinence, that sort of dribbling that women get sometimes as they age with menopause. So the name of gokshara is cow scratcher. Go means cow, and kshura means scratcher. The cows like to roll around in it because the seeds have burrs on them that the cow can itch on. But the actual seed itself also looks like a goat head. It's got a little beard and a couple of horns, it looks like. So I think that's the one you're describing. That's a pretty good menopause herb as well. All these herbs have multiple uses, and in Ayurveda, every herb has a physical, mental, and spiritual use, and often the names reflect those, the Sanskrit names. Mainly we're going to be using English terms in this class, but let me recommend one other one that women could consider for menopausal symptoms, and that's the herb Sariva, S-A-R-I-V-A, which is sometimes called Indian sarsaparilla, but that's not a great name to call it because it's not actually sarsaparilla. Sarsaparilla is smilax, and that's an herb largely from China, although it is used in Ayurveda. But Sariva is a similar herb, and it's profoundly anti-inflammatory. So that can help to treat hot flashes as well. We're going to dig into inflammation quite a bit in this course. It's a very popular idea. There's a lot of concern about it, and it's the underlying basis for so many chronic diseases. A lot of people are interested in it. So we'll take a deep dive into inflammation, including Sariva, which is used for pain relief as well, by the way. So anyway, that's another one you could try.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for your questions. You can keep typing them in, and I'll read them out. So we have time for a few more questions, but before we take those, I want to give you some details about Ayurvedic herbalism for women. This is really going to be a rich 7 weeks, as you can tell from KP's wisdom that he's sharing today. So much information. We're going to learn practical tools that will greatly impact your health and well-being through the ancient medical system of Ayurveda. The 7-week course takes place on Wednesdays at 12 noon Pacific, and that starts October 17th. Now, if for any reason you're unable to join us live, you won't miss the teachings. You'll receive audio and video replays, transcripts, and all course handouts on your course homepage. And also, I'd like to remind you that we offer a no-risk money-back guarantee on all of our courses. That gives you a full 2 weeks, in this case until October the 31st, to make sure that you absolutely love this course and it's a fit for you. And as an added option, all participants are invited to join a private Facebook community group where you can connect with one another, discuss your findings, and share your experiences in the course. Also, everyone who registers receives the Ayurvedic Herbalism for Women bonus collection. And these are for everyone. This bonus collection includes 3 webinars by KP. They are Ayurveda facials. That one sounds so interesting to me. I want to hear KP speak about that a bit. You'll also receive the webinar, Cutting Edge Ayurvedic Herbalism in Modern America, as well as Top 10 Ayurvedic Preparations that are not herbs. And when you register tonight, Tuesday, October the 9th by midnight Pacific, you receive this additional bonus gift. It's called Complementary Ayurvedic Techniques. This exclusive webinar by KP is a special course where you'll explore a full spectrum of what the ancient science of Ayurveda has to offer you. And anything else you want to share with us about those bonuses, KP? Anything you want to add?
Well, Ayurveda talks about 3 types of beauty: inner beauty, outer beauty, and lasting beauty. And we're concerned mainly here in our culture with outer beauty. And those standards change, different types of body weights or skin tone or hairstyles and fashions. And it's all just constantly changing. Ayurveda is talking about being radiantly beautiful for both genders, of course. In this case, we're talking about women. So we can use for that outer beauty Ayurvedic facials, which include, of course, all natural ingredients, which would be largely herbs, but a whole bunch of other things like fruit and like that. So we just go through a long list of facials in that course, things that are easily available for you to help treat your skin externally. And then we're going to be talking in the course about inner beauty, how to get your digestive tract and functioning and your hormones balanced, and so your body is working well and will give you beautiful skin and hair, whatever your age. And then lasting beauty is the beauty of the person who's just a beautiful person, their personality, their soul, their outreach, the way they communicate, the way they live their life. You just think of them as always being a beautiful person. They're all related. When someone is speaking to you with care and generosity and a sweet personality, you know that person just seems like they're beautiful in every way. So we're going to cover all those aspects in the course and also in those bonuses.
Great, KP. Thanks. So this is a question from an anonymous writer. As a thin Vata type, I've stayed away from fasting. Can you talk about detoxing versus fasting? What is a safe way for me to detoxify?
Yeah, well, the main detoxifying organs in the body are the liver, the kidneys, and then the large intestine, which really doesn't do much itself except just be a holder for those things. But it is the sewer, and so things that are eliminated from the blood by the liver and the kidneys have to go out through the large intestine. So we have to make sure that's working. So that trio of organs is very important. And the writer is absolutely right about Vata and fasting. So people that have a cold, dry physiology, they're hypometabolic. Everything is running a little slower than ideal, slower heartbeat, lower blood pressure, less effective circulation, so often cold hands and feet. Those people often have insomnia and anxiety and a lot of pain. So for those Vata people, we don't want them to be losing more weight. We want to build tissue, so we want to enhance their digestive experience so that they can absorb the food that they eat and have it make healthy, robust tissue. So we want to detoxify those people slowly and carefully. In the course, we're going to be talking about all 3 of those things, ways to enhance digestive fire so that the food gets broken down completely, ways to detoxify the blood and have the liver and kidneys working well, and then how to get it out through the sewer. So we don't recommend fasting. Ayurveda is not very supportive of fasting in general, although for a very few people, I happen to be that body type that tolerates fasting very well. I have a body like a buffalo, and in order to get anything to happen in that body, I have to be pretty aggressive. And so I've done a lot of fasting in my life, and it's been quite beneficial. But for most people, when you do water fasting, the body thinks that it's starving, and it goes into withholding mode rather than detoxifying mode. So we want to keep feeding the body, but feed it things that require less digestive energy and the body can use to help biochemically, let's call it, grab that waste material and help it come out molecule by molecule. Ghee is a very good detoxifying remedy. Strangely enough, consuming fat to detoxify sounds strange, but Ayurveda uses that extensively, especially for Vata type people. So if you tolerate it well and you digest it, Vata people can start with a teaspoon of ghee in a meal, see how it goes, and gradually build up. We want them to gain weight, so there's no problem with the calories involved. And ghee is very grabby in the body, and it will grab that waste material, especially fat-soluble stuff, and bring it to the eliminative organs and get it out. So slow but steady with everything with Vata. We want to do everything. We say in Ayurveda, for all Vata conditions, we say treat it like a flower. They're delicate little flowers that just need to be slow but steady, discipline, consistency, and nothing dramatic or extreme. My side of the spectrum, the Kapha side, is aggressive and extreme. So that's what I've gotten to do all my life.
Thanks for that. I really relate to that Vata advice. So thank you, KP. Deep Tea is saying, greetings, KP. You had mentioned taking 4 tablespoons of turmeric every day yourself. How long can one do that?
It really depends very much on the person. I'm taking a little bit less now because I don't show so much the benefit from that. I was doing that for a while in the past, and now I'm gradually reducing the dose in favor of other things. And so we're constantly changing our recommendations depending on the season of the year, the age in life, the condition of the body and of the doshas. So fundamentally, there's no problem with taking high doses of turmeric. It's a little bit drying, so it depends on the person and the circumstance. So if you find that it's causing your body to be dry, you either have to use moisturizing things, other moisturizing foods, like ghee would be an example, along with it, or cut the dose back.
June is asking, if it's used daily, will a person develop a tolerance to the sleep-inducing effects of nutmeg?
I don't think so. I've never seen that. If you don't handle the underlying reason that the person has the insomnia, nutmeg, you're using it in, if I could say it this way, in a drug-like way. Nutmeg has no curative benefits, and we'll dig deeply into nutmeg in this upcoming class. We've mentioned it briefly in some other classes here and there, and I know some people on the call have taken other classes other places, but we'll dive into all the details about nutmeg. There's a lot of details about how to use it successfully, but all it does is knock you out like any other sleep remedy would do. We talked about Jatamansi earlier, another sleep-inducing remedy. So if you don't take care of the underlying issues, which is usually Vata excess from the Ayurvedic perspective, then the moment you stop taking the nutmeg, you have insomnia again, so nothing has changed. So it's a good starter kind of thing to do to help people get some sleep, because sleep is so critical, but it's not a great long-term strategy. So does it build tolerance? I don't think so. I've not seen that. And what she's asking about is that if 2 capsules of nutmeg make you sleep tonight, will you need to have 5 capsules a year from now to make you sleep? Now, as people age, their tendency to develop insomnia increases, as we know. I mean, all of our grandparents are pacing the floor every night, right? So we know that. That's a general tendency of the human body. So that might seem more like tolerance, that year after year after year, you're less and less able to sleep and you have to take more and more nutmeg, but it's just the natural progression of the body. Nutmeg is a great remedy. It is the most potent herb that we'll talk about in this class, and it's one of the most potent sleep remedies that we have in Ayurveda, but it's not curative. That's the branch. That's the end of the twig of the problem is insomnia, but the root is excess Vata, and we have to take a long, steady, consistent look at that from point of view of diet and when to sleep, how to go to the bathroom. Ayurveda has a rule for everything, and the more of those you learn, the better off you are.
Thank you for that. I'd love to hear you speak for a moment, because we got over this kind of quickly, about this special bonus we have, KP, called Complementary Ayurvedic Techniques. Can you say a couple words about that? What those that register by today can look forward to if they purchase this?
Yeah, that's right. So we're taking a dive into all the other things Ayurveda has to offer other than herbs. The class, 7 modules, is on herbs only. Again, a little bit of ancillary discussion about things like food, but fundamentally talking about herbs. But Ayurveda has so many other different techniques. So we'll spend 90 minutes talking about those things, and that includes, of course, things that you've heard about, like yoga and meditation, but also lifestyle routines, dietary adjustments, body work, Ayurvedic body work that you can do with your lover, or you can do yourself. We'll talk about the various oils that can be used. So medicines that are not specifically herbal things that you swallow. So remedies that you would insert in your nose, or mouthwashes, or ways to take care of your hair and skin, and meditation practices, just a wide variety of other things that are other than herbs, just to flesh out your knowledge of Ayurveda a little bit. You know, we're a very product-oriented society, and when Ayurveda began to trickle into the United States, the first thing that was available was product, and that's kind of what we always do, you know. So there were a lot of products, and people knew very little about how to use them, and so Ayurveda became sort of like an herb store in people's consciousness. But it's really a way of life. It's a way of deciding, you know, when to go to bed, when to get up, how to adjust your life, the speed of your life, your occupation, how to have sex, who to have relationship with, just everything you could imagine. Those are the things that are equally important to being successful and living a long, healthy life. So that's where we're going in that bonus.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. We have several people asking questions about physical pain that they're experiencing, fibromyalgia, shoulder inflammation. So challenges related to body pain and inflammation, and what you can share with us about that.
Pain, again, is a symptom of other underlying problems, and pain is one of the most challenging things for natural medicine. We have some great remedies. The problem is that they compete with things like Percocet and OxyContin, and even ibuprofen. So you can drink a great big bowl of nasty tasting herbal mud that Ayurveda would like you to drink, or you can take you know, a Vicodin. So the question is, you know, why do you want to use a natural remedy, and sort of how much inconvenience are you going to tolerate to be able to do that? You have to get the thing, you have to make some tea, you have to drink it every day. A little less convenient. They work well, and on the other hand, though, no side effects and no addiction issues and all those other kinds of problems that you would have with pain relievers. So we are going to talk about pain relief in Module 5, and we'll go into 3 herbs that are pretty good for treating pain. None of them are anywhere as good as a Vicodin or a Tylenol. So maybe as good as the Tylenol, but for convenience, those other ones really have those things beat. But the long-term solution to these chronic pain syndromes is to handle your life, the underlying issues. So we've talked a lot about Vata this hour. Fibromyalgia is a Vata disease. It's something that happens mainly to cold, dry people, and those are people who have pain amplification in their body, an amount of pain that most people would kind of shrug off, people with that kind of a cold, dry body, that flower kind of body, and that you were talking about. Experience pain in a much higher volume. That doesn't mean that it's not real. It's very real for them, but we have to get to the root of that issue. I wrote a textbook on fibromyalgia, and I interviewed hundreds of patients that had it, and they were 99% cold, dry body type. So we use warming, nutritive therapies. We enhance digestion capacity and absorption. We treat mineral deficiencies, a wide variety of things. Fibromyalgia is basically a total collapse of the body's homeostasis, and Ayurveda gives us a framework to understand how to deal with that from an energetic point of view. If you're too cold, we're going to warm you up. If your digestive tract is underfunctioning, we're going to enhance that. And we just do a total assessment of everything that needs to be done and slowly begin rebuilding and working on that. There's no one magic cure for fibromyalgia or for chronic pain, but Vicodin is not a long-term cure either. So we work on these lifestyle issues, and slowly but surely people feel better. I've just seen tremendous benefit. It's going to take a while, though.
I love that you literally wrote the book on fibromyalgia, KP. I love that.
Yeah, that's true.
Can someone use Ayurvedic herbs along with a paleo diet, or do these philosophies conflict?
That's a good question. The basic Ayurvedic idea of diet is a little bit different than the paleo diet, but there are so many variations of paleo diet. Paleo just means, cave people eating unprocessed food. So Ayurveda is totally in support of that. A very meat-centric diet is not the typical ideal Ayurvedic diet. But let's address this meat issue for a second. Ayurveda is not in and of itself an overtly vegetarian system. It's a medical system. It's not an ethical or moral or religious system. Most of the people who practice Ayurveda live in India, and they are ethically and religiously vegetarian, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. And Ayurveda as a medical system would advocate eating animal flesh because it's very concentrated nutrients in emergency situations or situations where that's just the best way to go. You have to be able to digest it. Paleo diet, there are people who are now calling themselves pegans, paleo vegans, or vegetarian versions of paleo. No processed food, and no food that wasn't available to people in Paleolithic times, so probably no milk products. Ayurveda is often thought of as the sort of milk system, and that everything about Ayurveda is all about milk. But in fact, Ayurveda recommends being careful with milk, and the average amount of milk that the average Indian person consumes per day is about 3 ounces, mainly in the form of yogurt. So while Ayurveda likes cow products, I talked about ghee a couple times, it doesn't include walking over to your refrigerator and tipping back an ice-cold quart of milk right out of the bottle. That would be anathema to Ayurveda. So Ayurveda makes adjustments for these ideas. So you could say that in philosophy, it's largely Paleolithic, but probably not with the meat emphasis that most paleo people are eating today.
Thank you so much for bringing that up for us. Thank you. So, KP, I would love to hear why Ayurvedic herbalism for women, and what's this focus about for us? Why a course dedicated just to herbs for women, and what you're looking forward to sharing with us before we wrap up this call today.
Well, we know that in North America, at least, women are much more likely to care about their health. They go to the doctor more for preventive kinds of things. They're more aware of the way their body feels, and they want to look into it. Just every statistic shows us that. So women are a more receptive audience. They're more likely to actually do these things, in many ways much nicer to work with them because they actually want to feel better. So that's good news. But a woman's body is more complicated hormonally because of the fact that she can bear a child. A whole bunch of things are happening in the woman's body that don't happen in the man's body, which means that women are dramatically more subject to inflammation. They tend to require detoxification a bit more. They tend to have higher rates of brain and nerve disorders, multiple sclerosis, for example, drastically more in women, and that goes for everything from dementia to numerous other brain and nerve kinds of issues. Fibromyalgia, you mentioned earlier, another nerve issue, nervous system concern. That's about 7-to-1 women to men. Women are more likely to have insomnia than men. These are not, some of them are dramatic differences. The fibromyalgia is 7-to-1, 10-to-1 women to men. Likewise, things like MS. Insomnia, not so much, is not such a drastic difference, but still, there are a number of these things that women are more likely to experience. Pain disorders, women much more likely. Women are more likely to have fatigue. So numerous of these things. Now, we could have a whole list for men, too, that men were more likely to experience. And maybe our next course will be Ayurveda for men. But we just thought we'd start with the people that are a little bit more receptive, and we could dig into these issues that women have concerns about, that we're reading a lot about. So energy, pain relief, anxiety, women present drastically more. It's 20 times more anxiety than men. Now, that doesn't mean that they necessarily have anxiety more. It just means that they're smart enough to seek help for it. So part of it's social and cultural, part of it is physiology, and we just thought we'd start there.
Very interesting, and I'm sure that men will love a course on Ayurvedic herbs for men. But right now, we're just grateful that you're doing this course with us. So much to learn, obviously. So this has just been a great hour with you, KP, and thanks to all of you who are here with us and posed your questions for KP. Ayurvedic Herbalism for Women starts Wednesday, October 17th. We'd love to have you join us. Please visit ayurvedicforwomen.net. That's AYURVEDAFOR women.net. You can learn all about the course and register right there. KP, I'm going to pass it over to you to say your farewells and anything you'd like to share with our listeners before I close this call.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure to be offering this course. My clientele for almost 50 years now has been 95% women. And even though my colleagues tell me that things are changing and that more men are seeking out natural healing, it's not happening in my practice anyway. So I've cut my teeth on all these women's issues. And so I feel like I've waded deeply in these waters and have a lot to share, even though not being a woman myself. I talk to women all day long. I have 3 daughters. Something about being around women is, what my life is all about. So I'd love to share this information with you. And I really want to emphasize that herbal medicine is dramatic, dynamic, and effective. We've had 50 years now to resurrect it in the United States. And since Ayurveda now has become so much more available and people are aware of it, we have all those tools to really help it pack a punch. And I think you'll find that the things that we talk about, again, you'll be able to go right out and deal with those things immediately. I'm pretty easy to find on the internet. I think if you just search my name, you'll get right to my website. There's a whole bunch of information there. It's not all about Ayurveda, but a whole load of free articles. And so feel free to just go there and check everything out. And otherwise, looking forward to seeing you in our upcoming course, Ayurveda for Women.
Thanks, KP. And a reminder that if you register by tonight, midnight, Tuesday, October 9th, that's Tuesday, October 9th by midnight Pacific, you'll receive the bonus that KP shared, complimentary Ayurvedic techniques. So thank you, KP, for being with us and sharing all your brilliance. This is going to be a great course, I know. And on behalf of all of us at the Shift Network, I wish all of you well, and we look forward to having you on this course or on one in the future. Thanks for being here.